When we think about the word snare, or as Imam Ali calls it, kamand in Persian, it's a striking metaphor, isn't it? A snare is a loop, a trap. It's designed to capture and hold. And that's exactly what desires can do to someone. They're like these invisible ropes that can tie us down, even when we think we're moving freely. The more we chase them, the tighter the grip becomes. So let's visualize this for a moment. Imagine you're constantly running after wealth, money. It starts small. It's just a goal, right? You set out to save or earn more. But over time, it grows, it consumes you. Suddenly, you find yourself saying, if I just had a little more, I'd be happy. And then you hit that mark, and guess what? You're not happy. You want more. You're ensnared. At some point, it stops being about security or contentment, and it turns into like a psychological dependency, a craving. And desires don't have to be big, like wealth or fame. They can be surprisingly small, yet just as potent. Take technology, for instance. Maybe you found yourself glued to screens, scrolling endlessly, feeling hollow afterward. It's a fleeting desire to stay connected, but instead you feel like you're in the grip of it, unable to just, put it down and step away. It's these little snares that can rob us of our peace, while convincing us they're, harmless. Imam Ali's reflection here, I think, cuts to the heart of our struggles with desires. These snares aren't necessarily about the things themselves. It's about how we let them dominate us, how they guide our decisions, even distort our values. It's why he warns that being caught in these snares can lead to what he calls ugly behaviour. Because when desires control us, we can bend our morals, bypass reason, and often we don't even realise how far we've strayed. So let me ask you this to reflect with me. Can you recall a moment in your life when a temporary desire ended up controlling you? Like, instead of mastering it, you found yourself following it blindly. What changed in your behaviour? Did you notice? It's not always easy to look inward like this, but those moments can tell us a lot about where we might need to regain control. Unchecked cravings, those desires that we just let run loose, they don't just sit quietly in a corner. They start influencing our actions, our decisions, even the way we see others, and not in a good way. It's sort of like letting weeds grow wild in a garden. You think they're just plants, right? But they crowd out everything else, and soon, your entire garden is just gone. I'll share something personal here. A few years ago, I got wrapped up in this ambition of mine. I was working on a project, and I was obsessed with making it perfect, no matter the cost. I remember thinking, if I'm just, tougher, push harder, I'll make it work. But I started ignoring the people around me, the collaborators, my family. I became impatient, snappy, and honestly selfish. And that drive, which I thought was good, it blinded me to how I was treating others. It hit me one day when a close friend called me out. They said, "Eric, you're not yourself anymore. You've lost sight of what matters." And man, hearing that was my moment of clarity. I realised my ambition had turned into a craving, and it wasn't driving me towards success. It was pulling me away from who I wanted to be. And we see this, don't we? Not just in personal lives, but in bigger stories, history, even now. Think about, say, leaders who've let greed or the thirst for power run unchecked. They start down this path, driven by ambition, but then they take shortcuts. They break rules, betray trust, and eventually they fall. There's always that moment when their desire eclipses their judgment, and everything unravels. Imam Ali's words remind us of this, how unchecked desires can distort our actions and lead to what he calls ugly behaviour. Betrayal, injustice, greed. They don't just happen out of nowhere. They begin when we lose that inner balance. And keeping that balance, it's the hard part, isn't it? If desires are the snares that Imam Ali warns us about, then mastering the self, that's the tool we use to untangle them, right? He teaches that true freedom isn't about getting whatever you want. It's actually about learning to want wisely, balancing those cravings through reason, ethics, and for some, spiritual guidance. It's not an easy path, but it's freeing, isn't it? To not be at the mercy of fleeting urges, to live with intention. So how do we actually do this? Let's talk about mindfulness for a moment. It might feel like a buzzword these days, but really, it's just the practice of awareness, of catching yourself before desires take control. Like, you get that impulse to act, but instead, you pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this what I truly need? Or is it just my craving speaking? That split-second pause alone can start to shift things. There's also the idea of grounding our actions in ethical principles. And this doesn't have to be rigid or, dogmatic. Look at someone like Gandhi. He built his life around the idea of non-attachment, detaching from material possessions, power, even praise. Why? Because he believed that when you're free of those holds, you can focus on what truly matters: justice, service, integrity. It wasn't about ignoring his needs. It was about refining them, shaping them into something purposeful. And that's the balance we're talking about, isn't it? Imam Ali doesn't suggest we deny our desires outright. That's not realistic. Instead, he invites us to rule over them, not with force, but with understanding, with a sense of self-mastery that lets us steer our lives without being dragged around by every whim. Ultimately, I think this wisdom, this practice of mastering desires, helps us ask the bigger questions in life, like, what really matters to me? What do I stand for? It keeps us aligned with who we want to be, rather than stuck chasing who we think we should be. And that, I believe, takes us closer to freedom. Thank you all for reflecting with me today. And until next time, keep striving for that balance, that mastery within yourself.